Namandavits, 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 Namandavits.
Good morning. Today is April 9th, 2023, and we welcome you to New York Buddhist Church's Kambutse Hanamatsuri Flower Festival service for Shakyamuni Buddha's birthday, streamed live on YouTube and Facebook. We will begin with quiet sitting. Sit up straight, feet flat on the floor. Gently calm your mind and follow your breath. We will begin with Sambujo, 3 respectful callings, on page 8 and 9, then followed by Hyogakumon, dedication. Today's sutra chanting is Junirai, page 59, Tan Netbutsu and Ekokomere transcripts, followed by Banananti Sarana, 3 jewels, on page 7. Today's reading is Jodo Shinshu no Seikatsu Shinjo, Buddhist Life Principles, on page 5 and 6, and a special reading, Birth of Siddhartha Gautama from Sutras. Reverend Kirk Rye will be sharing today's Dharma message. We will have a special Hanamido ceremony, Oshoko and offering sweet tea by children, followed by Sangha. Our clothing gasas are In Lumbini's Garden, which is a handout, and Nembutsu on page 135. Namu Midabutsu.
Good morning, everyone. We respectfully call upon Tathagata Amida to enter this dojo as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. We respectfully call upon Tathagata Shakyamuni to enter this dojo as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. We respectfully call upon the Tathagatas of the 10 directions to enter this dojo as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. Kanbutsu Hanamatsuri, Bathing the Buddha Gathering or Flower Festival. Today, we, members and friends of the New York Buddhist Church, gather to observe the birthday of Siddhartha Gautama, the Indian prince who became the Buddha Shakyamuni, the awakened one, the sage of the Shakyas. Siddhartha was born on the 8th day of April. Soon after his birth, flowers bloomed everywhere, and it was also said flowers fell down from the sky. A light, sweet rain descended from the heavens to bathe the body of the newborn baby. Following this tradition, a special pavilion of flowers has been placed today over a basin of sweet tea to bathe the image of the baby Siddhartha. Near the pavilion is a white elephant in accordance with Queen Maya's dream, the mother of Siddhartha, announcing his birth. Wonderful indeed is the Dharma that seeks to awaken all sentient beings. May we all realize the meaning and purpose of Shakyamuni Buddha's appearance in this world, so that we may understand and rely on his teachings. Please repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 We will now chant Juni Rai, which is, I believe, on page 60 in the Red Book. virtue that leads to enlightenment be shared equally with all beings. May we together awaken the Bodhi mind and be born in the realm of peace and serenity. Namo Amida Butts, 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 Namo Amida Butts. Please rise for the Vandana and Tisarana.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
I go to the Buddha for guidance.
I go to the Buddha for guidance.
I go to the Dharma for guidance.
I go to the Dharma for guidance.
I go to the Sangha for guidance.
I go to the Sangha for guidance.
Namu Kie Butsu.
Namo Kie Butsu.
Namu Kie Ho.
Namo Kie Ho.
Namu Kie So.
Namo Kie So.
Namu Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu,
Namu
Namo Amida Butsu,
Namu
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu,
Butsu,
Namu
Namo Amida Butsu. Please be seated.
Everyone, please turn to page 5 in your service books for the Jodo Shinshu Creed. We'll read it first in English on page 6, actually. Jodo Shinshu Pledge number 2, and then we will read it together on page 5 in Japanese. Jodo Shinshu Pledge. Together. In trusting in the vow of the Buddha and reciting the sacred name, I shall proceed through the journey of life with strength and joy, revering the light of the Buddha and reflecting upon my imperfect self. I shall strive to live a life of gratitude, following the teachings of the Buddha and discerning the right path. I shall spread the true Dharma, rejoicing in the compassion of the Buddha, respecting and aiding others. I shall do my best to work towards the welfare of society. Page 5, Jodo Shinshu no Seikatsu Shinjo. 一つ、みほとけの誓いを信じ、尊い皆を唱えつつ、強く明るく生き抜きます。みほとけの光を仰ぎ、常に我が身を顧みて、感謝のうちに励みます。みほとけの教えに従い、正しい道を聞き分けて、誠の実りを広めます。みほとけの恵みを喜び、互いに敬い、助け合い、社会のために尽くします。ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブツ。
And now I'm going to read the story of the Buddha's birth, redacted from the sutras. The Bodhisattva at this time assumed the form of a huge white elephant with 6 tusks and descended from the Tushita heaven. He then passed under Queen Maya's right arm and entered her womb as she slept peacefully. The palace was filled with joy and peace. Auspicious clouds trailed in the sky and enveloped the tiled roofs of the lofty towers. One day, in the last month of her pregnancy, the queen decided she would like to pass the spring day in a flower garden. Receiving permission from the king and attended by a retinue of ladies in waiting, she had herself driven to the Lumbini Grove. The trees were abloom with beautiful flowers that gave off pleasant fragrances. The deep green grasses were like the tail feathers of a peacock and swayed like soft, fine silk blown by the wind. The queen took a pleasant stroll. She leaned on the limb of an asoka tree, which drooped down because of the weight of its flowers. At that moment, the Bodhisattva was born, suddenly yet peacefully. Immediately after birth, he took 7 steps in each of the 4 directions and proclaimed, "In heaven above and on earth below, I am the most honored one. I shall dispel the suffering that fills the world." The divine beings residing in space praised the virtues of the mother, Queen Maya. The Naga king rained down cold and warm water and bathed the body of the Bodhisattva. The great earth trembled and shook with joy. Shortly thereafter, the infant was received by the queen, and since everything proceeded without difficulty, the prince was named Siddhartha, which means whose goal is achieved. 7 days after his birth, his mother, Queen Maya, departed this world and was born in the Tavatsima heaven. And her younger sister, Mahaprajapati, assumed the role of compassionate foster mother to care for the prince. At that time, the sage Ashita, who had been living in the mountains near the city of Kapilavatthu, was startled by the auspicious signs that accompanied the prince's birth. He visited the royal palace, taking along with him his nephew, a child named Narada. Ashita cradled the prince reverently and gazed down upon him for a long time. But soon, choking with tears of sadness, he said, "O king, if this child remains at home, he will become a universal monarch and bring peace to the four worlds. But he will, without a doubt, leave home in search of the path and become a Buddha. I am an old man and shall not be able to hear the teachings of this Buddha. Realizing this, I shed tears of sorrow." King Sudana heard these words and rejoiced, making offerings to the sage and Narada in a variety of ways. And that is the story of the Buddha's birth, as told in the sutras. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. And now, we are going to roll out the screen for our Dharma talk, which has been pre-recorded by Reverend Kurt Rai of the Koji Buddhist Temple. Reverend Rai is a wonderful minister. He was at Ekoji for many years ago, about 12 years ago, and then he returned to California and was at Placer Buddhist Church, among other places, and presently lives in Fresno. And he has become, since then, the minister of Ekoji. And he's an old friend of ours, and we welcome him back. And he has, pay attention, because he is back in the Eastern District and no doubt will be a very significant person to us. So let's listen to Reverend Kurt Rai.
Good morning, New York. I'm Reverend Rai. I'm the minister from the Ekoji Buddhist Temple, and I'm here today for your Hana Matsuri service. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the board for offering me the opportunity to speak to you today. Some of you might recognize me. I served Ekoji as a resident minister 10 years ago, and I often made trips to New York Buddhist Church. I have many great memories of spending time with Reverend Earl during workshops, taking the train from Washington, D.C., and even marching in the Pride Parade the first year. So I have many great memories of New York. But my role currently at Ekoji is a little different than it was previously. I am the supervising virtual minister. And I'm happy to say that the virtual ministry is a project that is being sponsored by the bishop's office. And the idea is that we have so few ministers for the temples that we have, there's a shortage, as you are very well aware. And so the idea is not just to have the minister give the Dharma talk on Sundays, but also have other assets of what a minister does at a temple, though they might not be there in person. For example, I have virtual office hours, so even though I'm here in California in Fresno, every Wednesday people can contact me by phone or Zoom. And a pleasant surprise is that a lot of people are contacting me, not just asking questions about Buddhism, but sometimes talking about personal issues, and it helps them feel like I'm really part of their Sangha. Fortunately, I will be at Ekoji this coming week. We're having the Eastern District Council meeting, and I will be there, and we'll be celebrating our Hana Matsuri. So hopefully, I'll be able to see some of you down there at that time. Today, we're observing Hana Matsuri, which literally means flower festival, and it's one of the most beautiful traditions that we have in Japanese Buddhism. Hana Matsuri is not celebrated only by Jodo Shinshu, it's also celebrated by almost all of the Buddhist schools in Japan, and is a celebration of the child Siddhartha Gautama when he was born. And the idea is that today we're focusing on the historical Buddha. In Jodo Shinshu, we usually refer to Amida Buddha, but today we're honoring the historical Buddha. I just had a study class last fall at Ekoji, which was an introduction to Buddhism, and I think the most common misconception people have when they come to Buddhism is, what was the Buddha? Who is the Buddha? And then when they go to a temple like New York and they look in the Onaiji and they see the beautiful statue of Amida, is that Shakyamuni Buddha? And you can understand it can be very confusing. But today what we're doing is we're honoring the tradition of telling the story and going through the ritual of the Hanamido to relay the story of the birth of the Buddha. As I said in my class, I emphasized very strongly that Shakyamuni was a historical person. He lived approximately 2,500 years ago in between what is now India and Nepal. And the important thing for us to remember is that the historical Buddha was not a prophet, he was not a deity, he was a human being that went into a deep meditative samadhi and then realized enlightenment. We all have that potentiality. It's hard to see, isn't it? I think in Shin Buddhism, a lot of times refer to that we have Buddha nature. But the idea is that we do reflect upon the historical Buddha and his birth and celebrate that today. So what I would like to do is I would like to actually read the story of what the meaning is behind the statue that you're seeing in front of you, the little Buddha with his finger up, and the Hanamido, which is the beautiful altar with the flowers on the top. But before I start that, I just would like to point out that it is, we're going to be talking about a story or what is a myth. Before I started the ministry, I worked in the public mental health field in Seattle for over 20 years. And so I have kind of my background or the way that I look at things tend to be from a psychological viewpoint. One of the things that I remember, I studied Carl Jung quite extensively, and he said very succinctly that he said mythology is the scientific language of the ancients. Once again, he said that mythology is the scientific language of the ancients. In other words, it's easy for us from our modern perspective to look at these stories as kind of silly or maybe looking at them for some symbolic reasons, but what Carl Jung would want us to think is that the stories are rich with imagery and there are symbols in it, and these are ways for the people in times where before mass communication, before a lot of people were literate, they could hear these stories, memorize them, and then look at the deeper meaning and the lessons behind them. So I'd like to tell the story of Hana Matsuri. So it was the morning of April 8th, over 2,500 years ago, that a baby was born. In the Shaka kingdom, the king and queen did not have any children for many years. Queen Maya had a dream. It was a dream in which a white elephant entered her right side. And sure enough, it proved the queen was pregnant. The king and the whole kingdom were overjoyed. As was the custom in those days, the mother would deliver the baby in the house of her father. So the queen, Maya, and her entourage were making their way to the neighborhood kingdom, which was the kingdom of her fathers. Along the way, the group stopped to rest at the Lumbini Gardens. It is said that the queen wandered alone to the willow grove, where suddenly the willow trees bent to the side and covered her up so no one could see her. Then painlessly, how lucky is that? Painlessly, the baby was born out of her right side. Then the baby stood, took 7 steps in the 6 directions, north, south, east, west, up and down, and proclaimed, "Beneath the skies and above the earth, I am alone, the world-honored one." So if you look at the Hanamido, he's got his finger up, the little statue has his finger up, but that's what he's saying. Beneath the skies and above the earth, I am alone, the world-honored one. Then the willow trees righted themselves, and the baby appeared normal, being carried in his mother's arms. The group ran to see the baby and rejoiced. It was said that the flowers bloomed, birds sang, and it rained sweet tea. Unfortunately, Queen Maya passed away 7 days after the birth of Siddhartha, and as was custom, the king married a younger sister of the queen, and she raised the child as her own. There are many important symbols in the story that I'd like to talk about because today we are celebrating using the Hanamido. One of the things, as I mentioned earlier, is that Hanamatsuri in Japanese literally means flower festival. And so we have the flowers that are on top of the Hanamido, which are beautiful. But as Buddhists, we're very well aware that we use flowers a lot of times to symbolize also impermanence. We have flowers in the altar. And we always make sure that they're fresh flowers because the idea is that today they're beautiful, like with the Hanamido, and then we know that probably in a few days they will not be in that condition and that then they will pass on. And so the idea is that flowers are beautiful. We try to be present in the moment with them, but we also realize that they will be impermanent like we are. I have been involved in the BCA community for over 30 years as a member and as a minister, and I've been to many different temples, and every temple has a very different Hanamido, and it's wonderful. It's like a characteristic of that temple, and I'm sorry that I'm not there in person to see your Hanamido today. But when I served at the Placer Buddhist Church, which is just north of Sacramento in the foothills of the Sierras, it's beautiful countryside, it's rolling hills, it's gorgeous, there's flowers on the hillside. And their tradition is that they hardly buy any flowers for the Hanamido. And I know for us in the modern BCA, we're all running out, going to Costco. We're trying to figure out where in the world are we going to get all these flowers and how much they're going to cost. But at Placer, it was wonderful because it was that home feeling of that with the flowers are coming from people's gardens. And so the day before Hanamatsuri, the Dharma school kids would come with baskets of flowers from their gardens. And then I had a pleasant surprise because I was living in the parsonage. And then they were running out of flowers, and I'm thinking, oh no. And then they looked at me and they go, well, Sensei, all the plants that are planted around the parsonage are for Hanamatsuri. They're all different kinds of plants that bloom at this time of year. And it really gave me a warm feeling. And sure enough, we went around the parsonage and we picked all these flowers. And so when we had Hanamatsuri that day, the flowers came from the front yard and from people's yards. It's a very personal touch, a really nice experience. Also, we talked about the birds singing. One of the things that's to keep in mind is that the birds are very prominent in our Jodo Shinshu or our Pure Land Sutras. So if you read the Pure Land Sutra, they talk about the Pure Land as a place, and it's very elaborate, and they talk about the water and the trees, but they talk about the birds. And the reason I'm bringing it up because it has a very nice feeling that in the Pure Land, when you hear a bird tweeting, what it does is that it's the Buddha or Amida teaching you the Dharma. So for example, let's say I have an issue with impermanence. I don't understand it or I don't like it. So what if the idea is that the birds will be chirping and they're teaching me the Dharma. So I would like to think that with this story of Hanamatsuri, not only are the birds singing and rejoicing, they're also spreading the Dharma. Also in front of you with the Hanamido today, we do this once a year. It's wonderful that we have a ritual that we have the Hanamido, which, like I said before, is the little shrine with the flowers on the top, and then there's the statue with him putting his finger up saying, I am the proclaimed one. But then what we do is we take a ladle and we pour sweet tea over the Buddha. And the idea is that it symbolizes from the story that the skies opened up and rained sweet tea. One of the things that you might find interesting is that in ancient India, some of the rituals that we have to deal with what the conditions were like in India. For example, when we do Oshoka or lighting incense in India with the heat and the odors that can produce, especially for memorial services, that there was a very practical reason why that we had used the incense. And it's the same way with the idea of the sweet tea pouring from the sky, the idea that at that time sweet tea was a luxury, and that's a very dry climate. And so here, not is it only raining, it's raining sweet tea that we're able to drink. And again, as I said, going to many different temples, when I was a member of the Seattle Betsuin, Reverend decided that he wanted us to have the herbal tea. So in BCA, a lot of us go out, we get our Lipton tea, we boil it in the morning, we pour a bunch of sugar into it, and that's our sweet tea for the statue. But in Japan, traditionally, it's actually an herbal tea that's used for this purpose only. And Reverend Iwahara got it for us, and it had a very slight, subtle taste. So I was very fortunate to have the experience of having that sweet tea when I was a member of the Seattle Temple. But one of the most significant parts of the story is that he talks about walking, doing 7 steps, and again saying, beneath the skies and above the earth, I'm alone, the world honored one. And on the surface, we all smile. It seems maybe a little egocentric, right? We know that an infant obviously can't walk and talk. But what it is talking about is the symbolism of this is that it's talking about the Buddha's walking in what we call samsara. Samsara is the concept that that's our everyday life, the good and the bad, the suffering, the joy, samsara. And in Buddhism, the Buddha said the way for us to get out of that cycle of rebirth is to reach enlightenment, to break that cycle of birth and rebirth. And so what he's doing is that in those 7 steps, he's walking 6 steps, trying to break free of samsara. And what's important is the 7th step represents enlightenment itself. So what he is saying is that it's symbolic of, yes, it's the story of the birth of the Buddha, and he's not a Buddha yet. Remember, it's not until he's an adult and he goes into deep samadhi, because Buddhahood is not something that is given to you. That is something that you do through practice or through Amida Buddha. And so the story of the birth and him proclaiming he is the self-honored one also goes to the idea of, in Japanese culture and Asian culture, and I don't know if in America, but the magic age is 5 years old. And so they would say, I had the great fortune of living in Japan for 5 years in the 1980s, a great experience. And I had many Japanese friends, and they all talked about they could do anything that they wanted. We always think of the Japanese being very proper and very self-disciplined, but the kids are kids. I would love being on the subway train and seeing the kids jumping up and down. I remember the first word I learned in Japanese was yada, which means I don't want to, and that's because I heard all the kids on the trains and everywhere going yada, 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 I don't want to do this. And so my friend said, yes, the idea is that you're a little Buddha, you're a perfect little being, and then somehow at 5 years old, you're supposed to get your act together. And my friend, who was in his 20s at this point, was still very upset about it. And I said, Kenji, get over it. You're 27 years old. And he goes, life was beautiful until I hit 5 years old, and then all of a sudden I had to be disciplined. But it was a really nice feeling because when I was on the train, those kids were jumping up and down and saying yada, yada, yada. The grandparents were glowing. Everybody's glowing. All the tired businessmen and women going to work would smile. And this idea is that this was a little pure person, a Buddha in the making. It's a beautiful gesture. And I think that that's part of the idea of this story, is that when he says, I'm the self-proclaimed one, it's like, yes, he is, but it's also referring to the purity of all of us when we're young and before we start having all of these attachments and ideas. So today, as we celebrate Hanamatsuri, we reflect upon the birth of the historical Buddha Shakyamuni. We honor him by following the tradition of hearing the story and performing the once-a-year ritual of the Hanamido, where we recite the narrative of pouring the tea from the sky amongst a sea of flowers. We also remember the 7th step, where he, as an infant, demonstrated enlightenment that all of us have the potential to obtain. This is our Buddha nature. This is our core being. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namadats, 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 namadats.
For who are watching it on the video later, I want to thank Reverend Kurt Rye for that beautiful, beautiful Dharma talk. And I hope we all learned something today. It's really apropos to the day. It's about what we're about. So this is great. And so now, the moment we've all been waiting for, we are going to have the Hanamido ceremony. And before we do, take your hand out with Kambutsuge. Okay, and we're just going to read the English at the bottom. This is what we're going to be chanting while everyone comes up to offer sweet tea to baby Buddha, and then go over to do oshoko like usual, and then come back to your seat. But first, we're going to watch the kids do that, okay? Because they're going to come up here. They made the Hanamita this morning, so this is all they're doing. And they're going to come up and offer some flowers to put by the elephant there. And but you have to wait. Don't come up yet. Okay. So let's just read this text together, because you'll hear it as we're chanting, and you chant along. It's very easy. Let's read it together. Kamokuge Sutra. I shall pour sweet tea on the numerous Buddhas, the wonderful virtues and pure wisdom of the Buddhas, shall enable all sentient beings to cast off their defilement and be awakened to the absolute mind of the Buddha. Thus, I bow in reverence to Shakyamuni Buddha, to the greatest and noblest among all men. We now pour sweet tea of greatest virtues and extol the Buddha of absolute purity. Namo Amida Butsu. And apropos of Reverend Kurt's wonderful Dharma talk, Reverend Cheryl today actually did make herbal sweet tea. So this is high-end sweet tea that you're pouring. So we'll start chanting, and Aaron, maybe you want to come down and help the kids? And Cheryl, you help the kids? Okay. Okay, so we'll watch them. They're going to come up, offer the sweet tea, and then go over to do oshoko, and we'll be chanting away up there, and then you guys all come up one by one and do the same. And we'll take as long as it takes for everyone to finish. Shobhagyagon. sui, kanyoku nyorai joho shin, gakon kan moku sho nyorai, joshi shogun kudaku ju, gojoku shujo ryoriku, dosho nyorai joho shin, keishu daisho bogyabon, tenjo tengeryo sokuson, gato koni kudokusui, kanyoku nyorai joho shin, gakon kan moku sho nyorai, joshi shogun kudokuju, gojoku shujo ryoriku, dosho nyorai joho shin, keishu daisho bogyasomon, tenjo tengeryo sokuson, gato koni kudokusui, hanyoku nyorai joho shin, gakon kan maku jo nyorai, joshi shogun kudokuju, gojoku shujo ryoriku, dosho nyorai joho shin, keishu daisho bogyadon, tenjo kengeryo sokuson, gato koni kudokusui, kanyoku nyorai joho shin, gakon kan moku sho nyorai, joshi jogon kudokuju, gojoku shujo ryoriku, dosho nyorai joho shin, keishu daisho bogabon, tengo dengeryo sokuson, gato koni kudokusui, kanyoku nyorai joho shin, gakon kan moku sho nyorai, jochi shogun kudokuju, gojoku shujo ryoriku, dosho nyorai joho Dakusui Kanyaku Nyorai Johosin Gakon Kan Mokusho Nyorai Joshi Joshogon Tudokushu Gojokushu Doryoriku Dosho Nyorai Johosin Keishu Daisho Bogyamon Tenjo Tengeryo Sokuson Gato Koniku Dokusui Kanyoku Nyorai Johoshin Gakon Kan Moku Sho Nyorai Joshi Shogun Kudokujum Gojokuju Joryoriku Dosho Nyorai Joshoshin Keishu Daisho Bogyamon Tenjo Tengeryo Sokuson Gato Koniku Dokusui Kanyoku Nyorai Johoshin Gakon Kan Mokusho Myorai Joshi Shogun Kudokujum Gojokushu Joryoriku Doso Nyorai Johoshin Keishu Daisho Bogyakon Tenho Tengeryo Sokushon Gato Koniku Dokusui Kanyoku Myorai Johoshin Ganishikudaku Byodo Seisai Nohon Modaishin Ojo Nam Wamidabu. Nam Wamidabu. Nam Wamidabu. Nam Wamidabu. Okay, so that was great. So I want to invite the kids to come up one more time and just stand here to get the round of applause from everyone, because this is their beautiful handiwork today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we will sing our gathas, which is in Lumbini's garden. There should be another handout for that one. And then Nembutsu, which is on page 135. So let's have our gathas. Please rise for the gathas. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Please be seated. Okay, so now we have our acknowledgments. And first, thank you to that wonderful Dharma talk from Reverend Kurt Rye of Ekoji Buddhist Temple. Our greeters today were Claudia Kohn. Piano was played by Nobuko Kodama-san. Our tech team is led by David Brady. And the flowers were, beautiful flowers today, were by Junko I always ruin this. Junko Yamakawa. And she has a class on Saturdays, and there's a flyer in the back if you would like to learn how to make flowers like that. They're very beautiful, and she does it on Saturdays. I would like to also thank my fellow ministers' assistants and for helping out and doing the chanting and helping set up and take down. There's a lot of, Amida Buddha doesn't come down with the magic wand to do all this. And so thank you, but especially thank you for coming here. Without you, we would never do it. It would be not worth it. And this is what it's all about. We all make the service together. We always remember that. You're not receiving, you're participating in the service. We all do it together, each in our own way. Some people do things, some people sing, some people just smile. All of it's good. So that concludes our service for today. There is refreshments upstairs after the service. And are there any first-time visitors? We always like to greet our first-time visitors. Okay, so someone's coming with the microphone. So just stand, say your name and how you came to join us today.
I'm America Twiggs, and my stepmom is Buddhist, so I've always wanted to learn more.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Johnson Henshaw. I'm a student at Union Theological Seminary in the Buddhism and Interreligious Engagement program.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Alex Sarkisian. I'm also a Union student. I study and practice Buddhism in the Zen tradition.
Ditto. My name is Jenny. I'm a student also at Union, and so does Zen Buddhist. So thank you for having me.
So welcome. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Brendan. I've grown interested in the Buddhist teachings, and I've found the ceremony very beautiful. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. You're always welcome to come.
Hello, my name is Shar. I'm a mental health counselor, and I feel a lot of the teachings here align with what I do, and it's such a beautiful service. So I've watched you guys on YouTube, so this is my first time here in person. So thank you for having me.
I'm glad you came. Thank you so much. Wow. Full house today.
Hi, my name is Nina, and I'm joined with Stella and Catherine. We're all students from New York University, and we're studying Buddhism in Western context. So we decided to come here and take part in a service. Thank you for having us.
Well, welcome. Welcome. Everybody else is an old timer? Okay. Okay, so that concludes our service for today. Let us have closing gasho. Place your palms together, bow your head, and let us be grateful for the birth of the Buddha. The Buddha is not a god, as Reverend Rai said. The Buddha is someone who became enlightened and showed us the way to enlightenment. And let us always love what he loved and do what he told us to do, which is to say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So thank you very much. There is refreshments upstairs, and students might want to hang out. We'll talk to you a little bit. And okay, see you next time.